The bridge of silence. The first thing Daniel remembered was the sound of his own breath. Quick, shallow, uneven. And then, silence. Not the comfortable silence of a quiet room, nor the gentle stillness of night. This was the kind of silence that felt like a weight pressing on his chest, demanding answers. He stood on the old wooden bridge just outside his town, staring into the fog below. Somewhere beneath the pale mist, a river rushed like an impatient secret. He whispered to himself, "Why am I here?" The question hung in the air. He wasn't sure if he meant the bridge, the night, or his life. A problem we all know. Daniel was 29. On paper, he had everything people told him he should want. A stable job, a small apartment, a family that occasionally checked in. And yet every morning he woke up with the same hollow ache. It was the feeling of running on a treadmill, moving fast, sweating, exhausted, but never really going anywhere. Everywhere around him, people seemed to live with certainty. They studied for careers they believed in. They fell in love as if love was a language they were born knowing. They laughed in restaurants, walked in parks, shared stories that sounded like belonging. And Daniel? He wore a mask, smiled when he needed to, nodded when people spoke. But inside, he carried a secret fear. Maybe I am invisible. Maybe I am unnecessary. That night on the bridge, he had come to confront that fear. Or perhaps, if he was honest, to escape it. The stranger, thinking of jumping. The voice startled him. Daniel spun around. A man stood a few steps away, wrapped in a coat too big for his frame, holding a walking stick. His hair was white, his face wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp, alive. Daniel stammered, I wasn't. The old man raised an eyebrow. Then why are your toes hanging over the edge? Daniel looked down. He hadn't realized he'd stepped that far. I'm just thinking, Daniel muttered. Dangerous place to think, the man said. But maybe the right place too. The conversation. They stood in silence for a moment. The river roared below, unseen but undeniable. Finally, Daniel asked, do you ever feel like nothing matters? That no matter what you do, it won't change anything? The old man chuckled softly. Every day, the trick is not to run from that thought, but to wrestle with it. Daniel frowned. Wrestle with it? Yes, because buried inside that hopelessness is a question. What would matter to you? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. I've tried everything. Work, hobbies, relationships. Nothing sticks. It all feels temporary. The old man tapped his walking stick against the bridge. Thump, thump, thump. The rhythm was deliberate, almost like a heartbeat. Temporary, he repeated. That's the problem. You're chasing permanence in a world made of change. Daniel's past. The word stung. Daniel thought of his father, who had worked tirelessly as a mechanic, hands always stained with oil. His father had dreamed of retiring by the sea, fishing in the mornings, reading in the afternoons. But he never made it. Gone too soon, just months before that dream could begin. Daniel had promised himself not to live like that. And yet, here he was, trapped in routines, waiting for some invisible permission to begin living. I'm afraid, Daniel admitted, his voice trembling. Afraid that if I try, I'll fail. Afraid that even if I don't fail, it won't mean anything in the end. The old man's eyes softened. Fear is honest, but it's also a liar. It tells you that staying still is safer than moving. But look, he gestured toward the foggy river. Even the water doesn't stand still. It flows, crashes, reshapes. That's its purpose. And maybe yours too. The turning point. Daniel's chest tightened. But what if I don't have a purpose? The old man smiled faintly. Then create one. Create one. Yes. Stop waiting for life to hand you meaning on a silver platter. Take the raw clay of your days and shape it. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to impress anyone. It only has to be real. The words echoed in Daniel's head like thunder. Create one. For so long he had searched for meaning as though it were hidden treasure, guarded by riddles he wasn't smart enough to solve. But what if it wasn't hidden? What if it was something he could build? Through choices, through courage, through imperfect steps forward. He looked down at his hands. They trembled, but for the first time in years, he felt something other than numbness. He felt possibility. The decision. Daniel stepped back from the edge. His shoes scraped against the wood of the bridge. The old man's gaze followed him, calm and patient. So, the man asked, are you ready to stop being invisible? Daniel whispered, I don't know how. Start small, the old man said. Call someone and tell them the truth. Pick up something you've been afraid to try. Write, sing, volunteer, build, break. Whatever you choose, choose it with both hands. And when fear comes whispering again, as it always will, remind it, I am flowing forward, like the river. Daniel nodded slowly. He didn't have all the answers, but he had one thing he hadn't felt in years: direction. The aftermath. Over the following weeks, Daniel kept replaying that night in his head. He called his sister and admitted how lost he had felt. He signed up for a community art class, even though he had no idea how to paint. He started walking every morning, not to arrive anywhere, but simply to move. And each time fear crept back, he repeated the old man's words. I am flowing forward, like the river. It wasn't easy. Some days the ache returned. Some days he doubted everything again. But now, doubt didn't paralyze him. It pushed him to wrestle, to ask new questions, to create new answers. The revelation. Months later, Daniel returned to the bridge. The fog was lighter this time, and he could see the water swirling below. He looked around for the old man, but found only emptiness. For a moment, he wondered if the stranger had been real, or just a projection of his own desperate mind. Either way, it didn't matter. The words remained, alive inside him. He leaned on the railing, whispering into the wind. Meaning isn't found, it's made. And for the first time, the silence around him didn't feel heavy. It felt like space, open, infinite, waiting for him to fill. The moral. The lesson is simple, but it cuts deep. We wait too often for life to reveal meaning, when in truth, meaning is crafted in the small, deliberate choices we make each day. Fear will always speak. Doubt will always follow. But like the river, we are meant to move, to reshape, to create. And when we do, even the silence becomes a bridge, carrying us from who we were to who we are becoming.